from the subject, a reset season, a reset season. This is not a season where we're going to come back and just resume. It's not a resume season where we're just going to pick up where we left off and resume. That's not what I feel. I feel like that this is a season, and God has been resetting us for a while. Mostly everybody knows that we have been in a pandemic, and everyone that knows that we have experienced loss, not only in America, but we've experienced global loss. Many of you that are watching me have lost loved ones. You've lost jobs, you lost opportunities, you lost wages. Some of you have just even lost stability in your life. You've lost time. And it's been a season of loss. And most people know by now that there is a vaccine that has been developed. And the last I heard, if I heard it correctly, they stated that over half of Americans have taken that vaccine. And for many people, it feels as if it is an answer to prayer. For many people, it feels as if it's a new beginning. It feels as if it's a new lease on life, where they can go back to being with their families and hugging people and just eating out, or whatever it is that you felt like you have been deprived of. For many people, that's what the vaccine means. I know there's a lot of controversy around it, and I'm not here today to speculate or to say those kind of things, but for a lot of people, it almost feels like, yes, this is the light at the end of the tunnel. It feels like we can take a deep breath and we are on the verge of a fresh start. After 15 months of people being confined, I say 15 months because that's what it feels like it's been. I believe it's been close to that since we had church in the sanctuary. But after 15 months of pretty much people being confined at home and not venturing out, only except for on the occasional times that they had to go get the necessities of life, it feels like there is a measure of freedom that has come. We have, in all reality, we have been held captive. We have been held captive by a virus that came, and it wanted to kill, and it wanted to steal, and it wanted to destroy. Not only destroy people physically, but it wanted to destroy people emotionally. It wanted to destroy people mentally and financially and even relationally. It's even destroyed some people spiritually. And the fact that you have survived, it ought to cause you to recognize that it was God that brought you through it all. You know, we used to sing a song that was written by Andre Crouch, and it said, through it all, I have learned to trust in Jesus, and I have learned to trust in God. And for many of us over the last 15 months, we have had to learn to trust God more than we have ever trusted him in our life. And through the ups and the downs, and through the fears, and through the frustrations, and through the anxiety and the loss and the lack, and for some even the loneliness, through the ventilators, through having to sit in a hospital parking lot while somebody you love was up there being placed on a ventilator, the long nights, the late nights, the tears, the trauma, and sometimes even the torment, the confinement, and the conflicting of your emotions, the quarantine, and the just straight up what we could call captivity. That's what it feels like to me. And to be honest, we were not ready for that kind of captivity. This is the land of the free, and it is the home of the brave. How in the world could we have all been driven into our homes and away from each other by something that is called a virus? I mean, we were ready for that, and we are believers, and you have no right to try to hold me captive to anything. And yet the Bible, if you will take time to look, the Bible is full of scriptures that deal with the concept of captivity. It is actually in the Old Testament, the major theme of the Old Testament is one of captivity. For the people of Israel, they spent 400 years being held captive in Egypt, and then they spent another 70 years in captivity and in Babylon. And as a matter of fact, the words, I was Googling it earlier, the words captivity and the words captive and captives, they are mentioned hundreds of times in Scripture. Captivity actually means the condition of being imprisoned or being confined. It means that your freedoms have been limited, and it's not a voluntary limitation. It is an involuntary limitation. It means that you have been confined or trapped or restricted or limited or narrowed or controlled against your own will. Does that sound like 2020 and a little bit of 2021? It does to me. It sounds very familiar. But the opposite of captivity is freedom. It is emancipation. It is being liberated to go and to come as you please. It means I've got options. It means that I have choices that I can make. And in that regard, I think that it is safe to say that this pandemic has really been a year of captivity for a whole lot of us. Our lifestyles have been altered. Our movements have been restricted. Our choices have been limited. And because of the way things are turning around, we are slowly but surely, we're seeing some of our freedoms come back. We're seeing movement come back. We're no longer do you get on the highway and wonder where everybody is. Everybody is there, okay? Because there are cars everywhere. Their choices are back. People are being restored. But the world, I want to say this because I think this will help us. The world as we have, the same world that we retreated from at the beginning of this pandemic will not be the world that we return to once it is declared over. Things are different, and things are going to be different, and they will be that way forever. We are readjusting, and we are redefining, and we are re-entering into a new normal because sometimes normal can change. And if you didn't believe that, you probably believe that now. And we have to adjust ourselves accordingly because things are never going to return to being exactly like they were. It will never be the way that it has always been. Now, everything in your life may not change, but for the most part, the world has changed. The church has changed. The way that we function has changed. Our schools, our educational campuses, they have all had to make changes. You have changed, and I have changed, and all of us will have to say, eventually, we have to say yes to change, because if we don't, then we are not going to make it. And we can either sit here and cry and long for the way it was yesterday, or we can say, yes, Lord, you can move and you can do whatever you want to do in any kind of environment, in any kind of way. You're still God. You're still on the throne. You still sit high. You still look low. You are still in charge. And Lord, even though it's caused me to be pushed out of my comfort zone, I did tell you yes a long time ago, and periodically I've said yes to you. And so it's been a year where we have had to see if we could really do what we said to God that we were going to do, which was say, yes, Lord. Now, it's been a traumatic 15 months. Now, if you know anything at all about trauma, then you know that you don't experience trauma and not walk away changed. Trauma changes you. I said trauma changes you. And you do not go through any kind of traumatic experience and come out the same. It just doesn't work like that. Well, 2020 and even parts of 2021 have been traumatic for so many people. And as your pastor, as the watchman on the wall over your life, as someone who has to give an account for you, as somebody who loves you and wants to see you succeed in life, today I want to help you and help you as you begin to make some adjustments in your life, adjustments that you need to make so that you don't just survive this pandemic, but that you thrive in spite of this pandemic. And I want to tell somebody today that with the help of God, I said with the help of God, you and I and all of us can find a way to not just survive, but to thrive even in the midst of a pandemic and be brought out into a wealthy place. Do you hear me today? I said you can be brought out into a wealthy place. So how do we do that? How do we re-enter life, and how do we do it correctly post-pandemic? Well, let me tell you, I want you to get a pen and I want you to get a piece of paper, because I want you to write some things. And you can do it on your phone, ever how you choose to do it. But going back to things the way they used to be pre-pandemic is not the way that we should do it post-pandemic. Some things are not going to change. Other things are going to change. And we got to know the difference of what can change and what cannot change. And here's why. Because we didn't go through everything that we went through just to resume life as normal. This is not about us resuming life. We have been given an opportunity to now reset, to renew, to reboot, if you will, to reactivate what feels like is our life that has been laying in ruins. And we are going to go through change. Why don't you just go ahead and confront that thing right now and holler out right in your house, in your living room, in your bedroom, in your car, wherever you are. I am going through the change. I refuse to get stuck. I refuse to mourn over yesterday. Things are changing and God is in charge. So as long as he's in charge and he is at the helm of the ship, I trust him and I will follow him wherever he leads me. So instead of returning to the same old way and doing the same old patterns and having the same old thought processes and the same old habits and the same old behaviors, we have to realize that God is not a monument. God is a movement, and he has given us a moment. He's given us an opportunity. He's given us a window of hope. He's given us a window of opportunity so that we can not only build our lives back, but we are going to build our lives back better than they have ever been. You got to build it back better. You could do that. You got, and I hope you are laying claim today of that. I hope you're laying hold of that. We got to build back our homes better. We got to build back our life and our lifestyles better. We got to build back our families better. Families have taken a huge hit in the middle of this pandemic. Put your shoes on. Get your hammer and nails out. Get some wood and tell every devil in hell, I am going to rebuild my family. I'm rebuilding trust. I'm rebuilding my marriage. I'm going to rebuild my business. I'm going to rebuild my dream. I'm going to rebuild my vision. I'm going to rebuild. I'm going to build a better me, and you are going to build a better you, and together we are going to build a better us. And it is for this cause today that I want you to hear me, and I want you to make sure that you're prepared to take some notes, because we cannot go through what we've been through and come out just like we went in. We have got to be different. I would say, if you were here, look at your neighbor and say, be different. different. If you're in the comments, just put in there hashtag be different. I didn't go through all of that just to be the same, to have to cry over the same things and whine over the same things and complain about the same things. I know God better now. I've been through some dark nights. I've been through some long days. I've learned that he'll be a friend when you don't have anybody else. I've learned that he'll be somebody you can talk to when everybody else is tired of hearing you talk. And so I declare unto you that we will come out better than we were when we went in. The good news today is that God knew exactly where we would be. He knew, and he knows where we are. And so in the middle of all that we've been facing and going through, he gave us his word. Aren't you grateful today for the word of God? He gave us his word. He gave us his promise providentially and very thankfully. The Bible is a book that is fabulously filled with instructions, with wisdom, with counsel, with strength, with advice on how to come out of captivity correctly. I told you we've been held captive, but we want to come out, and we're coming out correctly. The Bible is full of all of those things to help us come out of it. And as our freedoms are being restored, and as those restrictions are being lifted off of us, there is that old book that's sitting in your house. You know, it might have been your mama's or your mama's mama or your daddy's, but it's that old book that's been faithfully in your family for years. There are a lot of answers in that book right there that is called the Bible, and there's a lot of wisdom and instruction, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to take you into a little bit of that today so that I can show you and talk to you about how faithfully to come out of and safely to come out of this pandemic that we have been in. There are 5 books in the Old Testament that were specifically written to God's people to give them instructions on how they were to come out of captivity. They were in captivity in Babylon for 70 years, and these books are called the PostExile Books, and they were written as an example to encourage the chosen people of God. And today you and I are that chosen people. They were written to let them know when they could come out and how that they could come out of what they were being held by. These post-captivity books are Ezra. Ezra was a priest, and then there's Nehemiah. We know him as a builder, but he was also a civic leader. And then there were the prophets Haggai and Zechariah and Malachi. These were the prophets of God, and God used these 5 men, and he taught them who and how to come out of captivity, and how to build back, and how to build back better. They taught them how that they could come through a storm and not be overwhelmed by the storm, and how they could come through a crisis and a calamity and still come out of the fire without having the smell of smoke on them. Now, the reason that I said I want you to listen and I want you to get a pen and paper is because I think if we listen to them and their words and their instructions, and we heed those instructions, I believe it will stop us from making a whole lot of unnecessary mistakes. So grab your pen, and I want you to write these down, because these are the things that we got to do when we are in a reset season, and that is exactly where we are. So, and we do that so that we can have life, and have life more abundantly. So are you ready? If you're ready, somebody holler ready, and we're going to go into this. And here's the first one. In the reset season, in the seasons where God has set you aside and is resetting your life, this is something you can expect to experience. Expect conflicting emotions, okay? Write that down. In a reset season, it's normal to have conflicting emotions. conflicting emotions. Now, when the people were allowed to return back to their homes in Jerusalem, and when they were allowed to return back to their temple, they found that their homes and their temple or their church or the entire city of Jerusalem, they found it lying in ruins. They had been held captive. When they came back, the city, the church, I mean, pretty much everything that they had lived for was now in ruins. So the first thing that they did is they came together and they started rebuilding the house of worship. I love that right there, because they understood how important it was to rebuild the house of worship. And they started out by laying a new foundation in this new house of worship. Well, that brought a lot of people joy when they saw that the temple or the house of worship was being restored. A lot of people had joy and they were clapping and dancing and they were singing. But then on the other hand, it also brought and caused a lot of people to manifest grief and manifest sadness, because they had memories of what used to be. They had memories of how the temple used to be. And so as they were watching the new come along and being established, they were grieving over the old, and they wanted it to go back to the way that it was. But you know what? God was moving them on. I'm going to read to you today out of the book of Ezra, chapter 3 and verse 10, and here's what it says. And when the builders laid the foundation of the temple of the Lord, the priests in their vestments, they came forward with trumpets, and the Levites, the son of Asaph, with cymbals to praise the Lord, according to the directions of David, king of Israel. So some things were changing, but there are some things that will never change. And what they were doing was being done according to the instructions that came from King David of Israel. And the Bible says, and they sang responsively, praising and giving thanks to God. What was they saying? They were saying this: for he is good, and his steadfast love endures forever toward Israel. Can I tell you today, the Lord is good. We already sang about that. But his steadfast love is good toward not only Israel, but it's good toward the Potter's house of North Dallas. It's good to wherever you are. The steadfast love of the Lord, it never ceases. And the Bible said, and all the people shouted with a great shout when they praised the Lord, because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. But many of the priests and the Levites and the heads of fathers and houses, old men who had seen the first house, they wept with a loud voice when they saw the foundation of this house being laid, though many shouted along for joy, so that the people could not distinguish the sound of the joyful shout from the sound of the people's weeping. For people shouted with a great shout, and the sound was heard afar off. Do you see what's happening right there in that verse? Things are different, and there are different emotions that are manifesting in that text. Some are grieving, some are sorrowful, some are crying for tears of joy, but things are, there is a conflict in the emotional makeup of these people. So I say this to you: do not be surprised if you find yourself having conflicts emotionally as we get back to re-entering life and church and work and school and whatever it is that you are going to get back into. Do not think that it is strange that one minute you could cry and the next minute you're laughing. One minute I feel great, Pastor, and the next minute I'm like scared. One minute I'm like, where's my mask? And the next minute I want to go home and I want to stay home. And listen, that I just read all of that to you because that's what happens when you have been in captivity, but now you are coming out of it. I want want to say that today because I want you to hear me. You are coming out of it. I am coming out of it. Our church is coming out of it. Our nation is coming out of it. And for all of the naysayers that want to sit out there and just keep talking about all of the craziness that I have heard, I want to say to you, you work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. But as for me and my house, God is bringing us out of it. But I tell you this because I want you to be forewarned that as you are coming out of things, you might have conflicting emotions because things will possibly look different. And you know what? To be wrestling emotionally, look, you're human. Hello? You're human. You are human. I am human. And those things that we are feeling, it's perfectly normal. You know why? Because it's been traumatic. It's been like being hit by a tornado. It's been like a tsunami of grief has tried to overtake us. And as fears begin to subside and the realization of what you've lost starts setting in, you can expect grief to move in possibly even more. Listen, we have lost over 500,000 Americans. And if you haven't been touched by the COVID-19, if you haven't been touched by anybody that has been touched by it, you've been touched by job losses, or you've lost finances, you've lost graduations that you didn't have the opportunity to have, you lost Christmases with family that you just knew you would always be there with, you've lost opportunities to be there for one another, couldn't even have funerals for people that you love. Those are lost opportunities. You've lost the experience of being there to hold your grandbaby when it first comes into the world. This, my friend, is lost. And when you start calculating all of that up, it will leave us emotionally conflicted because things have radically changed in our life. Things have radically changed in the last 15 months. So things are, and guess what? Things are changing again. And so we've got to just understand that no matter how it changes, God is still God. He is still high. He looks low. He still rules. He still gives you your breath. He still causes your heart to beat. So I want to say to you, if you are conflicted emotionally, don't be so hard on yourself. And guess what? Don't be hard on anybody else either, because this has been traumatic. And the Bible tells us to weep with those who weep, and it tells us to mourn with those who mourn. So whether it's rejoicing or whether it is weeping, this is what I loved about the story that I read to you just a moment ago, is some were weeping, some were crying, some were hollering, some were singing, some were dancing, but at the end of the day, they were all back together in the house of the Lord. I said they were all back together in the house of the Lord. So it's okay if you are conflicted emotionally. God is going to settle all of that because he's a good Father. The second principle that we must put into practice when we are in a reset season is that we have to pull out of the pandemic our aha moments. You got to pull them out of this pandemic. Before you jump back into the fast lane of life, before you just get back in the fast lane, you need to pause and you need to say, what was it that I learned through this pandemic? Before you resume life and all of life's demands, I want you to get a book, a journal. I want you to get something to write in. And I want you to write down, this is what the pandemic of 2020 taught me. And I want you to write it down for a reason. I want you to write down, one of the reasons is so that you don't forget what happened for you through that. I also want you to write it down, because periodically we need to pick it up and we need to review what we learned, the things that took our breath away in the middle of the pandemic, whether it was positive or whether it was negative. You need to write those things down. Write them down because, and I think this is really vital, write them down so that you can share them with generations that are yet to come. Because I thought so many times in the middle of this, most of you know that I lost my mother a couple of years ago. And so in the middle of this pandemic, I just really gave God thanks that she was in a better place. But I also thought, Mom, you've been through a pandemic, or you know something about it. And I felt like I was so unprepared for this, which a lot of people feel like they were unprepared for it as well. So I want to be determined to make sure that I write down in a book so that those generations that are yet to come that have not lived through a pandemic have a journal of somebody who has come through it, but they came through it saying, God has been faithful to me. Don't you let these, what are you saying, Pastor Brady? I'm saying don't let these these last 15 months go to waste in your life. You went through too much pain for it to just go to waste. Surely we have gleaned some lessons. Surely we've gleaned some spiritual things, some natural things. Surely we have gleaned some life experiences that we can put in a book. No, I'm not Paul. I'm not Silas. I'm not Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, but I can get a journal and write some things down so that when Jaden's children come, or when Mackenzie's kids come, or when all of my great-grandchildren start coming, they can look at that and they can say, look, if God brought Gigi through that, he's going to bring us through whatever we have got to face. So I say to you, document your journey. Write it down, because in your mind, you're going to forget it. Write down what God did for you. Write down how he broke the fever for you. Write down when you didn't have none to eat, that somehow he caused somebody to bring a box of food to your house. Write down when you didn't have to have a job to go to, how God turned around and put you on somebody's heart, and somebody prayed for you and you made it. You're here. You're still here. You have survived. Write that down and document this journey, because we cannot allow the last 15 months to go to waste. Paul tells us in Galatians 3 and 4, you have experienced many things. Were all those experiences wasted? He said, I hope not. The Message Bible says it like this. Did you go through this whole painful learning process for nothing? Is it not? No, he said, it is not yet a total loss, but it certainly will be if you keep this up. So here is your homework. Get your journal out, and I want you to write in there. I want you to write in that journal how you came through 2020 and beyond. I want you to write in there what took your breath away. What were those aha moments? I want you to write, what did I learn from this? I want you to write what mattered most to you in the middle of this pandemic. I want you to write things in there like, what did I learn? What didn't matter? What didn't matter that I thought was so important in my life? What did I learn about my strengths when I was in a pandemic? What did I learn? I thought I was strong, but really, was I as strong as I thought I was? What did I learn about my weaknesses? Did I realize that they were really as close to being activated as they really were? What did I learn about my relationships? Those relationships that I thought I had to have, but obviously I didn't have to have them. What did I learn about the pace of life? What did I learn about the culture culture that is around me. Many people learned about the differences in culture through this pandemic. What did I learn about prayer in the middle of this pandemic? I'm telling you, your children, your children's children, and your children's children's children need to see how God has brought you through this. I realize some come out on boards and some came out on broken pieces, but at the end of the day, if you came out, you better tell somebody, because if you didn't, then your journey was wasted. I want you to write down, I want you to say, this is what I learned. This is where I met God. I met God in my closet when my heart was overwhelmed. I met God on my face when I felt like I couldn't hear another news story. I would go into my closet and fall in the floor and say, God, this is El Bethel. This is our meeting place. I don't like that we're having to meet like this and under these circumstances, but God, I'm reaching out to you. You said that if I would draw close to you, that you would draw nigh unto me. Tell somebody where your meeting space was. I want you to write down what you learned about patience. I want you to write down what you learned about long suffering. I want you to write down what you learned about peace and love and faithfulness and endurance. What did I lay down in this pandemic that I don't ever want to pick up again? What did I embrace that I need to keep post-pandemic? What scriptures, what scriptures brought me through? What brought me through when I opened the word of the Lord? What were those scriptures that pulled you through the darkest days of this pandemic? What song brought you through? What was the song that was in your heart that you would walk around your house just singing? What was your quarantine song? Whew. Your goodness is running after. It's running after me. Whew. Sometimes I had to say that by faith because I felt like I was chasing his goodness. But at the end of the day, I realized he was running after me. Where did you sing it? What moments brought the song out of you? What moments brought the silence out of you? Where did you go when you were just at the end of your rope and you did not know where to turn? Document your journey before you jump back into the routine of your life. Write about him. Write about him being your counselor. Write about him when you were just about to lose your mind and God showed up in the nick of time and he said, hey, lo, I am with you always. Write about the comforter, how he came in and said, it's going to be all right. I got you. I will be with you always. Write about the healer. Write about the stabilizer when everything around you was shaking and you should have just hit the ground and passed out. You stood there. You stood firm on Christ, the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. A sinking sand. Write about your strength. You are my strength when I am weary. You were my strength. You were my fortress. You were my anchor in the middle of the storm. Write about him being the best secret keeper you have ever had in your life. What did you let go of and make space for so that you could do something else in 2020? What has God done that has blown your mind? I'm telling you, if you don't write it, you'll forget it. And that's exactly what the enemy wants. He wants you to forget what God has done for your life in the middle of a pandemic. What came full circle for you this year? Write it, and make it plain so that whoever picks it up and reads it will find the strength to run their own race. The third thing that you have to do when you've hit a reset season, this is important. Listen to me closely. re-examine before you re-engage. Re-examine before you re-engage. Haggai wrote to encourage the people as they were coming out of captivity, and they were trying to acclimate their life on the other side of captivity. He wrote, now this is important, before you jump back in, I don't know why I keep saying that, but before you jump back in, I want you to take a good look at yourself. Don't just automatically re-engage. I want you to reconsider the whole picture before you re-engage, because this is your moment to do it different. This is your moment to do it different. Some things don't need to be different, but some things need to be re-looked at. Some things in the middle of your reset moment, you need to make sure that you examine them again before you re-engage in them. There are some activities, your plate was so full before the pandemic that you couldn't hardly enjoy life. You were busy doing this and doing that, and somehow the pandemic slowed down your life. Well, some of those things you don't need to pick back up. You just need to look at it and say, that was then, but this is now. What habits did I lay down that I am not going to pick back up again? What relationships do I think that they were so necessary? But the truth is, you've made it 15 months without them, and it's okay. This is an opportunity for us to reset our entire lives. Do not just resume. We want to reset. This is an opportunity for you to do it right. This is an opportunity for you to get it different. This is an opportunity for you to establish new habits, for you to draw new boundaries in your life. This is an opportunity for you to start setting new patterns in your life. This is your reset season. We are building back better, but it all begins by making the decision to reconsider before you re-engage. God told the prophet Haggai in 1:7 and 8, he said, this is what the Lord Almighty wants you to do. Hear me, Potter's House North. This is what the Lord Almighty wants you to do. Some of you have been saying, I'm so nervous about where we're at and where we're going and what's next and all of these things, and I get it. It's okay, we're human. What that does is it makes us lean on the Lord a little harder. It makes us pick up our Bible and hold it a little closer. But this is what the Lord Almighty wants you to do. Take a good, hard look at your life. Think it over. You've spent a lot of money, but you haven't much to show for it. You keep filling your plates, but you never get filled up. You keep drinking, but you're always thirsty. You put on layers and layers of clothes, but you still can't keep warm. You earn wages only to put them in a purse or a bag that has holes in it. So give some serious thought to your ways. I said I didn't say it, but God said it through his prophet. Give serious thought to your ways. Give serious thought to your ways, sir. Give serious thought to the way that you are living your life. What God is saying, here he's saying, if you are going to take advantage of this reset moment or this reset season in your life, you must the first thing you must do is you must admit where you are, and you must admit that you're lacking fulfillment, and you must admit, I keep eating, but I'm not full. I keep drinking, but I'm still thirsty. What are all those things that were in that scripture? What are they? They are metaphors for something we call dissatisfaction. Hunger, thirst, lack of fulfillment, money issues. Metaphors for dissatisfaction. So you have to ask yourself, why am I so dissatisfied? Why am I so unfulfilled? Examine your heart. Examine your life, because an unexamined life is not worth living. So examine yourself. And if God has allowed you to live, you at least ought to know why. And you need to focus on that with everything that you've got. He didn't have to let you live. Do you hear me? He didn't have to let you live. But if he let you live, why? You need to come out. When you do come completely out, you need to come out running after your purpose. You need to let go of everything else and run after the purpose of God for your life. Because let me tell you, you have no energy to waste on purposeless endeavors. You have no energy to waste after this pandemic doing purposeless things. How do you know that, Pastor? Because what you've been in, what I've been in, what we've all been in, has been traumatic. Let me tell you something about trauma. Trauma exhausts you. Trauma drains you. Trauma will suck the life out of you. It will leave you depleted. And in this year, everybody and everything has attached itself to the battery of your life. And you know what happens when that happens? When in a car, when everything starts drawing on the battery, when all the lights are left on, it starts drawing on that battery. What happens is it loses power. You do not have the same energy that you had 15 months ago. You do not have the same stamina. Things have just become a little harder to focus, harder to even rest at night, because you're just not sure what tomorrow holds. So whoever I'm talking to today, be kind to yourself. Give yourself a break. Be nice to you and be nice to other people. If somebody cuts you off, come on, y'all. Just let them go. Don't be crazy and get in a fight and start arguing with people. This world ain't the same, y'all. It's not the same. We have all become a little impatient. We've all become a little eager. And we've all found ourselves in a bit of a hurry for this pandemic to be over. But let me tell you something. God knows what he is doing. God is not in a hurry. And let me tell you something else about God. He's not a day late and he ain't a day early. There, you will not find in Scripture anywhere where God was trying to do something in a hurry. He doesn't do that. He's an on-time God. I mean, think about it. It actually took him 3 days to get to his best friend's house, and he was dying. Lazarus, that was one of his best friends, and he was dying, and they sent word, come, Jesus, tell Jesus to come. Lazarus is about to die. He was only about a half day's journey away from him, but he took 3 days to get to his best friend's house. And when he did get there, he was gone. Why? Because he had a better plan in mind. I said he had a better plan in mind. He was going to resurrect Lazarus. He didn't just want to heal Lazarus. He wanted to resurrect Lazarus. That would cause everybody to know that he was God. Listen, his timing is perfect. I'm going to say it again. His timing is perfect. His timing, ma'am, is perfect. Stop fretting yourself. Stop. It's one thing to long for something godly or to long for more of him. We sing that song, I want more. Jesus, more of you. I need so much more. Jesus, I want more of you. And that's a good thing to desire. But there's a whole lot of other things that we are allowing to consume and to control what we desire. His timing is perfect. To every single man out there, his timing is perfect. To every single woman, his timing is perfect. And you're fretting yourself. And God will just say to you today, I can't give you that because you've made a God out of that desire. And I am not going to have any other gods before me. So put me in the rightful place. For the person that's wanting that position, that's wanting that title, that's wanting that dollar amount or that. It's good to have all of those things. But at the end of the day, you are not God. He is God. And after a year like we've had, the trauma in our life is too much for us to try to be God or be somebody else's God. Listen, the people that were in a hurry to get everything, to go back to the way that it was and the way they remembered that it used to be, God had a word for them from the prophet Habakkuk. And it's this: at the appointed time, I have decided everything, and I have planned when it will happen. So God not only, I know he's got a plan, for the Lord has a plan for me, saith God. Yeah, he also has a time, a plan and a time. He has a plan. Somebody ought to put that in the comments. He not only has a plan for you, but he has a timetable for you. So trust him. He said, you can trust what I say about the future. But it won't happen all at once. It may seem that it's taking a long time. But be patient and keep on waiting, because the vision will surely